I'm here with Kaitlin Sopoci-Belknap. She's going to tell a story about her health, her healthcare, and more importantly, how the job that she does, the work that she is doing. She is a national director of Move to Amend. Many people look at these organizations as, oh, it's only for those activists. Well, her personal story was more important to her, to us, than what she is actually doing, but it shows how both of these guys are congruent. So, Kaitlin Sopoci-Belknap, welcome to Politics Done Right. How are you doing today?
Thank you, Egberto. Hey, it's great to see you.
Kaitlin, recently, tell us a little bit about your health situation because this ties in perfectly with the reasons for Move to Amend and all these other organizations that are trying on the grassroots level to make sure that our politics reflect what we really need.
Yeah, well, I think maybe what makes sense to start with is yesterday. So yesterday was April 30th, and it was the last day that I have healthcare. I don't have healthcare today. My husband was recently let go from his job, and we lost our healthcare. And yesterday was our last day, and there was the hearing in Congress for the first time on Medicare for all, and it was something that was already on my mind. And I saw an interview that Alyssa Milano did talking about the presidential election. And she was talking about how what's most important is that we beat Trump and the policies really should come second. And, that really just hit me because I'm going to be voting for the candidates that are supporting Medicare for all and these other policies that are critical for our survival as a species on this planet, but also, our everyday lives. And the reason, I've not had healthcare before in the past, but the reason why it matters more right now is that I was diagnosed with ovarian cancer 3 years ago. And it was completely out of the blue. There's no family history that I have of it, totally unexpected. And honestly, the only reason why I went to the doctor was because for the first time in my adult life, I actually had health insurance. Through my husband's work, he worked for a union. And so we were incredibly lucky to have very good health care, which is not something that even most Americans who are insured through their work can necessarily claim. But we had, top of the line healthcare. And I had this pain in my abdomen, which honestly, again, like all through my 20s, when I was going to like the, open door clinic for my healthcare, I wouldn't have gone to the doctor for quite some time before I had a lot more pain. But, we had just moved to Sacramento and I figured, well, I should go to the doctor because I can. So I did. And long story short, it turned out that there was a mass, and they assured me that I'm too young to have it be cancerous. It was probably benign, but they needed to remove it. But then it turned out that it was cancerous, and I was incredibly lucky in that it was caught early, and it was sort of resting on my bladder, which is why I could feel it. And ovarian cancer is the number 2 killer of women who have cancer because it's very hard to catch it early. Most of the time, by the time it is caught, it has spread. But I was a 1 in a million case, honestly, in that they were able to remove all of it through my surgery. And I didn't have to do chemo. And that was 3 years ago, and I have been cancer-free ever since. But I have needed to go every 3 months to get an ultrasound and some blood work to make sure that it's, not come back. And I'm supposed to do that for 5 years. And then after that, I will need to keep doing it, but at a less frequent interval. So I have 2 years left, but now I don't have any health insurance. And when we were looking at, coming on to Covered California, I live in California, to see if we could continue it, it's $600 a month for a plan that allows me to go to the doctor 3 times a year and doesn't cover lab work. I don't, I do there's some of this is some choices on my part, right? I'm college educated. I could have a job at, some corporation or something like that or a union myself and maybe have my own health insurance. But I have chosen to orient my life around my activism and this work for Move to Amend because I feel like that's critically important. And my husband was supporting me by being the one to provide the health care. And so some people are not even, in a position to even have any of that on the table. They have to have, minimum wage jobs where there isn't any health care available whatsoever, and both members of the household. So I recognize that. And the reality is that the reason why I didn't die from ovarian cancer was because I had amazing health care and I was able to go to the doctor and catch it early. I mean, part of it was, just luck of the universe in terms of the way the tumor was growing. But some of it was, if I hadn't had that insurance, I wouldn't have gone to the doctor in time, and it would have killed me, or at least I would have had to have, a very traumatic chemo and, recovery and all of that, which is what most women with ovarian cancer have to do. So anyways, as we're looking at our finances and, we have a mortgage, we try to live, frugally, but we both have some debt. We are, normal people.
Regular, average, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, it's a modest car, but, and I can't add $600 a month. I don't know where that would come from, and so what we elected to, and actually that wouldn't really cover what I need. It's $980 a month for the plan that would allow me to have the blood work every 3 months and the ultrasound every 3 months. And so really that's what we're talking about. The 600 is sort of like what somebody maybe who didn't have a history of cancer could get away with. So we decided that for now we're not in a position, and we're going to try and rearrange our finances. I mean, the reality is that we're actually separated. We have 2 different households, but we're still married because we're still friends. And there's a lot of people that are in these kinds of situations. And honestly, the reason why we're still married is because of the healthcare piece. And luckily, he is a very he's still my best friend in many ways. He's a very supportive person. He's still my family. But there are women who are in abusive relationships that they stay in so that they can, have healthcare. Or so that their children can have healthcare. I mean, it is crazy, the situation that we're in. So seeing Alyssa Milano just sort of cavalierly say the only thing, I mean, of course, Trump is terrible and Trump isn't moving us in the right direction in terms of healthcare, but there are candidates in the presidential primary who are supporting Medicare for all, and there are candidates that Alyssa Milano is supporting right now, Joe Biden, who actively have worked against Medicare for all. And there are millions of people who are uninsured because they can't afford healthcare. And so it just really hit home, and it really upset me. And so I retweeted that interview that she did and made a comment. And I'm pretty new to Twitter, but
that's amazing.
Was like people were liking it and retweeting it, and I was like, this must be really resonating. I don't really, because I was so lucky, I don't actually have to daily think about I'm a cancer survivor. I don't even really talk about it that way, because what I had to survive, at least up until this point, has been relatively limited in the trauma compared to many, many people who have cancer. I mean, I did have to have surgery, and I had a scary 2 weeks where I thought for sure I was going to need to do chemo, and, it was very upsetting. And then I had some other health issues that came from the surgery. I had an autoimmune disease that showed up, and rheumatoid arthritis, and that's not a small thing at all. That, completely messed up my life for 1.5 years until I figured out how to
deal with it
without medication. But that's the other thing. Luckily, I found that, through diet, I was able to address my inflammation. But most people who have autoimmune diseases, and lots of people have rheumatoid arthritis, and it's debilitating, and I couldn't work for a while, and so people get on medication. That was what I was supposed to do, and did do for a little while, but it didn't really work for me. So I would be in the position right now, if that had been the path that I had ended up down, where I would be losing my insurance. And then we would have had to find the $600 somewhere,
because you would have needed. Now, it's interesting because Alyssa Milano is showing one stage of privilege In other words, and believe it or not, there are a whole lot of folks that claim to be progressive, and that they only see things through that tunnel vision. What's interesting enough is that one of the other problems with healthcare, Caitlin, is that at any given time, maybe 5-10% of people are really going to see doctors and that sort of thing. So they cannot see they're so tunnel vision that they can't see the picture that could be them. And that is one of the reasons why your story is so important and so impactful, because we need to be able to show folks, regular average citizens like yourself, that's just out there like you and me, it can happen to any one of us, no matter what our situation is. So that is important. Now, Medicare for All, explain to folks what Medicare for All would do in your situation, make your situation better.
Well, it would mean that we wouldn't have the private insurance piece. And so we would be paying for our insurance still, but, through our taxes, and which, I already pay a good amount. My taxes actually went up thanks to Trump, because again, my husband had a union job, but we're separated, so our finances are, so I make, about $45,000 a year, which is not very much to be living in a city. And I have luckily paid off all my college debt, but I had a lot of college debt.
Right.
And people, I'm going to be 40 this year, but if I were a little bit younger, I would have a very large, tuition payment that I would still be paying as well if I was, in the same situation. And so anyways, what it would do is it would make it so that, we don't have to work through Kaiser or Anthem or Blue Cross or whatever. It is provided by the government. And, most first world countries use this healthcare model. And, that doesn't mean that it is perfect for everyone every time. But what was also, so, just really hit me is the number of people who responded to my tweet yesterday talking about their situation and, medication. One woman talked about how her son, who has a minimum wage job, doesn't make enough money to pay for medication that he needs. And so she has an extra job and she uses, and I didn't get the sense that she was somebody who necessarily is really, should be of working age, like should be headed towards retirement, because she has an adult son who she's supporting so that he can get his medication. So she has a job, and all of the money from her job goes to, pay for his medication. So these kinds of things would just be, irrelevant. They wouldn't be part of the story. And, people in Great Britain, people in Canada, people in France, people in the Netherlands,
Taiwan, Japan,
stories.
Israel, who we consider one of our biggest allies, they have socialized medicine and the entire thing. But they're okay. But our citizens can't have it. I mean, it is so important. What we have to, what is the other thing? Let's get off of Medicare for All for one little thing, because I think we have to first let a whole lot of folks, let's say in these red states, and I know you do a lot of work in red states as well, with Move to Amend. These people don't realize that these politicians are screwing them. For those who don't have the Medicaid expansion to the Affordable Care Act, which you have in California, they don't understand that their own politicians, for all practical purposes, are committing legal murder. And what I say to our side, or progressives, etc., is that we have to start being able to articulate in the manner that they articulate to their people, to convince them to do the things, to vote against your own interests, to support policies against your own interests. What are you doing in that regards to with your organization?
With Move to Amend, you mean?
Yes.
Not around healthcare. Well, I mean, the thing is,
Well, move to I like to talk about Move to Amend it with regards to healthcare as well,
right.
because I mean the reality is, if you are successful, we will get the policies that we need.
Well, yeah, and I mean that's part of why it's really important that there's these policies, and then there's the legal system that will make it either possible for us to actually have the policies, or will hinder our ability to implement the policies. So, and what I mean by that is, when we do pass Medicare for All, and single payer, and this new system, right now, there's nothing to stop the insurance industry from suing our federal government and saying that this new policy violates their constitutional rights. And we don't know what kind of exact argument they will make, but they
They
will
will.
argument. They will,
Yes.
do it probably on the First Amendment and potentially on the Fifth Amendment, saying that their right to profits is a takings and the government needs to pay them for that. And so the only way that we're actually going to be a critical piece of moving Medicare for All forward needs to be changing the Constitution so that corporations don't have constitutional rights and
Exactly.
thwart our progress towards protecting Americans and making it so that we can actually take care of our health.